Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan getting a little excited, a little angry, talking about the mainstream media versus independent voices and asking the question, how are you real to corporate media? How are you real when there are so many independent voices doing the work and bringing so much content day after day after day? So we're going to be playing that clip, and then I'm going to get into a bunch of other stuff. I'm going to springboard into a quick conversation about what Project Mockingbird is, and believe me, it makes sense in the whole realm of the conversation. Watch the whole thing. And just so you know, I'm going to tell you right now at the end, Tucker Carlson, I have a clip of him blowing the whistle like you've never seen before, and then I'm going to be showing you something that is very unexpected that is happening at X. Trust me, you want to see that Tucker Carlson clip, but I'm going to start with Project Mockingbird and what that is. Then we're going to move on to St. Clair, which is a massive media company, and I'm going to show you their Project Mockingbird moment. Then we're going to touch on Rolling Stone, the publication, because Joe Rogan brings that up and something that they said that was not true. And I'm going to show you an article that actually debunks that. Then we're going to touch on CNN and all of their ridiculousness, especially what they did to Joe Rogan. Then we're going to touch on a little bit of Stephen Colbert and all of his propaganda-like content that he makes. Then we're going to touch on Tucker Carlson and how he's treated by the mainstream media versus what they actually do. Then we're going to touch on James O'Keefe. Couple of clips from James O'Keefe. He's breaking a story right now that you would not believe. I'm going to show you a couple quick clips of that, and then I'm going to show you how the mainstream actually treats him. Then we're going to hear the Tucker Carlson whistleblowing clip. Believe me, you want to hear what he has to say. And then we're going to touch on something that is alarming that's happening at X, the so-called truth platform, the so-called freedom of speech platform. Let's get into it. Don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got Sold Not For Sale shirts, different variations, and we have Public Enemy #1. And believe me, we have so much more. Discount code is IamCoachColin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name, Colin. Let's get into it.
Regardless of how nonsensical some of the stuff that they print is, I still have faith in journalists. I think we're going through a very weird trend right now where they're not behaving like journalists, they're behaving like propagandists. And I think that the business is imploding because of that and the rise of independent journalists. And I know there was an attempt at a correction at CNN. There was an attempt at it. But they had so many fucking holes in that ship that just try to patch them up a little. You're not going to get people's trust in that way. And I don't think it was effective, so it wasn't effective in terms of the amount of people that were watching, and there's no dynamic personalities that people appreciate and respect and really, really trust that are on the air. It's simply talking heads that you're familiar with. But I think that ultimately they're going to have to either adjust or die. Either one of them is okay. Because if they die, then you have independent journalists that do have the respect and the admiration of people because they put their neck out there and they've said things that are controversial and difficult, and they've made these points from a well-articulated place of an actual understanding of the issues and not ideological. So when you're seeing something like the New York Times post things that are clearly ideological, Rolling Stones lost the plot. I mean, just what are they doing? They're propaganda and nonsense. That shit that they did during the pandemic about the people dying from ivermectin while gunshot wounds. How many people are getting shot? The fuck are you talking about? You've got a line of gunshot wounds? Is that what you're showing me? And then you're showing me a photograph, which is a stock photo of a completely different time of the year where people are wearing winter jackets. You fuckheads. Like, this is crazy. You're talking about, what was it, Oklahoma that we're saying? Oklahoma in the summer and people were wearing parkas? Like, fuck you. How are you real? How are you real? How are you real while the Dark Horse podcast exists? How are you real? It's because people... They're not quite ready to jump ship yet, but they're fucking close. And so you've seen the New York Times and the LA Times just fired a shitload of people. Sports Illustrated. There's all these organizations that are just fucked now because the media, corporate media, you don't want to call it mainstream anymore because it's not as big. It's really not. The real mainstream is online. And corporate media is fucking imploding. But the people that want those jobs, the people that go to school, the people that really grow up respecting and appreciating and admiring actual journalists, the people that uncovered Watergate, the people that report about the pipeline being blown up and who's actually doing it. You know, when you get real, like, kids that are growing up right now that are listening to this, people that are in college right now that recognize the true value of journalism, they're going to get out into the world and some of them are going to make it, and they're going to show the way. And it's the only way for those businesses to survive. You can't survive as a propagandist while X exists. You cannot, because you're going to be exposed. You might work for the boomers, but guess what? They're going to die. They don't have much time left, especially if they take your fucking medical advice.
Exactly. So let me introduce a concept here that we talk about on Dark Horse regularly, which is 0 is a special number. And this is about a little piece of game theory that the rent-seeking elites did not understand. The idea is, if you have control, if you have censorship control over all of the social media platforms, then the world looks a particular way because certain stories that should be discussed can't be discussed. If a single platform escapes that control, then it becomes the platform that everybody wants to be on because nobody wants to be treated like a child. We all want to be in the places where we can discuss whatever needs to be discussed. So by buying Twitter and keeping it afloat through the initial attacks, Musk created an environment where we are now much freer than we were to speak even just 2 or 3 years ago.
And it seems to have alleviated pressure.
That's my point. Once you have one entity that succeeds in stabilizing itself outside of the control, every other social media platform has to follow or die, right? Because
but do they?
They are and they will. I mean, it's possible that they will find some way to defang X. There's still a lot of bad architecture inside of X. But if X remains freer, then it forces the hand of everybody else who wishes to compete because nobody wants to be, playing mini golf when there's real golf.
Can you expand on the structure of the architecture that you think is?
Well, let's just say, I will use in my defense. I met with Elon, and he talked to me about something that I think he's also talked publicly about, which is the fact that before he owned X, he could detect that the behavior with respect to his own account was not organic. That there was lots of structure inside that decided what to elevate and what to suppress. I feel this in my account. I've in fact seen very strange stuff up until last week. It's very hard to convey that to anybody because they don't know how good you are at sorting actual shenanigans from just feeling like a tweet should have done better than it did.
Right.
And, it was just luck of the draw. But I think it is possible to demonstrate. Let me just tell you about one example.
Okay.
I was tweeting about it was about after my interview. I had 2 recent interviews with Tucker Carlson. The second one was about the border crisis, and it contained some really explosive stuff. And it was not trending, which is weird for a Tucker interview, especially one that got as many views as it did. And there has been some I used to be able to do something I would call climbing a trend. If there was a trend on Twitter, I could very often tweet about it, and then my tweet would climb up the trend. And that became impossible. It was like forbidden somehow in the architecture of Twitter. In the aftermath of this Tucker interview, I expected to see that interview and my participation in it trend because so many people saw it. It was like 6 million views in 2 days. So that it was obviously something that was being seen and discussed. And it didn't start trending. And then a weird thing happened. My name trended, but it was only my first name, and it trended under the category sports. And if you went to the tweets in the trend, they were actually about the Tucker interview. So the Brett...
Whoa.
Right. So what it turned out, somebody posted underneath, they said, it's Brett Favre, that's why it says Brett. Favre. Ha.
Communist. What's wrong with me?
Wow, I'm not going to live that down, am I? But Favre.
He's a legend. You got to get his name right.
He is. I am going to from now on.
What'd you say, Jamie?
That's going to be a meme.
All right. Well, I'll take my lumps on that. But nonetheless.
It's an odd spelling in your defense if you don't,
Well, yeah. So here's what happened. BRET trended. Mm-hmm. The category was sports. It wasn't Brett Weinstein trending. Right. And when you went to the tweets, they weren't about sports or Brett Favre.
Mm.
Okay? They were actually about me.
Right. So you were prevented. This episode is brought to you by, I am excited to say that Black Rifle Coffee is, he was brewing coffee on their website, and while you're there, make sure coffee. This episode is brought to you by Armra, only colossal cut prevented from trending in some way.
I think that what happened, to put it in the proper computer science language, is that the intersection of Brett Weinstein and Brett Favre is B-R-E-T. He spells his name with 2 T's, and obviously we have different last names. But the idea was that whatever the architecture in the back of Twitter was preventing me from trending, but they had a but he was allowed to trend, and because our names had this intersection, I could trend under his category.
But most of the category was about you.
None of it was about him. It was all about me as far as I could tell.
Wild.
So anyway, I think that implies the structure that I've been detecting but haven't been able to establish. And anyway, that stuff is still inside Twitter. Do I think Musk has put a block on me trending? No, I don't think so at all. But I think there's something in there that he doesn't know about.
Well, you got to think who's working there. Okay?
Right.
First of all, Twitter's in San Francisco. The idea that you're going to get 4,000 rebels who are, you know, international dark web members that are working.
Now, Joe's going to go into a straight-up defense of Elon Musk because they're friends, but I'm just going to go up a little bit because Brett actually says something that is going to link up to the end of this video, the last clip I have to play, because something happened between Elon and Brett, and it only happened as Brett started questioning you know, how X is operating, whether it's good or not. Here, I think I skipped over it. I think we're here. Let's try.
I spent about a half an hour with him. At the end of it, he said that he thought it was a good discussion and he wanted to meet again. And I said, anytime, of course. On my trip back home, literally from that meeting, my Twitter account got hijacked for the first time ever. I've never had an account hijacked, but my Twitter account got hijacked and it started putting out some crazy spam stuff. And I was concerned about it because not only is it alarming to have your account captured, but I had been DMing with Musk, including encrypted DMs. Now, there wasn't anything sensitive in there, but you can imagine in my shoes, the last thing you want is somebody captures your account and they start exposing communications with Musk that maybe he doesn't want public. So I contacted him, right, in alarm. And I said, my account's been captured, not sure what to do about it. We were in a discussion, and we were talking about the fact that the account itself has weird behavior on Twitter, which I didn't know if that was relevant or not. And he asked me for more information, and I started to tell him about this trend stuff. He blocked me. Now, I don't know.
So that's what I wanted to just show you guys really quick. So he got blocked. Okay, just as we go through this whole episode and I show you the very last clip, you're going to understand why that's a little odd. So Brett brings up why X is not operating, you know, for lack of a better word, fairly, and then he gets blocked by Elon Musk. But that's not where it stops. There's another person that you would classify as a journalist who actually got that same, if not worse, treatment from Musk. And it's starting to show that the mainstream might have a bias, and we all know that it does. It's not even a might be. We all know that it does. And we can see it very apparently as time goes on, as we see all these independent voices. And we think, and at least I've been a proponent of, you know, you can go to X and see stuff. They're not going to stop anything from being seen. It seems like that might not be the case. Seems like, you know, the mainstream is ran by some shadow entity, whereas X is ran by someone that we can all see, and he's kind of letting his own biases be shown. Now, let's jump into quickly, what is Project Mockingbird? Let's get into some stuff here. I just wanted to read this really quickly because I've always known about Project Mockingbird, but I didn't know about this part here. So, Project Mockingbird was a telephone interception activity conducted by the CIA between 1963 of March and 1963 of June. Now, here's the thing here, down here. According to author Deborah Davis, Operation Mockingbird recruited leading American journalists into a propaganda network and influenced the operators of front groups. 1973 documents referred to as the Family Jewels was published by the CIA, containing references to Project Mockingbird, which was the name of an operation that wiretapped two journalists who published articles based on classified information. So that's me saying it. Now I'm just going to give you a little clip of a little breakdown of Project Mockingbird. Here you go.
When someone's trying to manipulate you, it's not always easy, especially when that person is supposed to be a trusted source of news. Operation Mockingbird was created during the early years of the Cold War to disseminate propaganda to the public through CIA-backed journalists. In 1975, the Church Committee was created to investigate abuses by the CIA. In their official report, they stated that they found 50 journalists who had official but secret relationships with the CIA CIA, though they chose not to name those names. In 1977, investigative reporter Carl Bernstein, already famous for his investigation of Watergate, published in Rolling Stone magazine that over 400 members of the press and 25 large organizations were secretly on the CIA's payroll. These journalists and organizations were tasked with writing and publishing fake stories that could manipulate public perception.
So, little quick breakdown if you didn't know, because I know it's common knowledge to me and some people that I know, but then when you bring it up to other people, they don't really know about it. You know, you hear the name here and there, but I didn't know there was 50 journalists involved. I knew there was journalists involved. I didn't know there was 50. And you have to think about back then, how many news stations were there? When we say 50, that could be 50%. There wasn't all that many people on TV giving you the news. There weren't that many. And then, of course, there could be some people just running around doing, just writing articles. But I don't know. It's just a lot of people. And now I only show you that to say, do you think that stopped? Do you think it stopped there? From March 1963 to June 1963. They just stopped it there. They said this is out of control. Is that really what happened? Or did it just get better? You know, imagine seeing a phone. imagine just stopping production of phones. Is that what we did when we figured out phones? Or did they just get better and better and better and better to the point that there's supercomputers in our hands? How much did this operation actually grow? Does it still exist? I don't know. But as I show you this clip, it might sway your opinion. Project Mockingbird style. Here.
News has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things that aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 This actually is extremely dangerous to our democracy. I had to repeat it. That is a true part of what they're saying. Now, what you're seeing here is all of the anchors and online just media talking head people who are all a part of something called the Sinclair Media Group. Now, what is Sinclair? Sinclair is a massive company. I'm going to play this quick clip that's going to give you a quick breakdown. So they own quite a bit. You're going to see here. Let's play this quick.
Of its existence, Sinclair has been the biggest broadcast company that no one has ever heard of. Based just outside Baltimore, Sinclair was founded by Julian Sinclair Smith in 1971. His 4 older sons are now the company's majority shareholders, with David Smith serving as the company chairman. Over the past 5 decades, Sinclair has grown into the nation's largest independent owner of TV stations and now owns nearly 200 affiliates, concentrating in smaller markets like Green Bay, Scranton, or Cincinnati. Sinclair owns or operates affiliates of Fox, ABC, CBS, NBC, and even Univision in areas of the country that voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton by a 19-point margin on average. In March, Sinclair stations began running these must-run spots.
So the video goes into exactly what I showed you beforehand, that wild clip of everybody saying the exact same thing. Now, Sinclair, very big company, it kind of had their Project Mockingbird moment, right? And I don't know, just as I see that, I'm just like, did this ever stop? You know, I'm asking the question again. This was recent. This is not something that was from 30 years ago. What I just showed you is something that happened just 5 years ago. And Sinclair is still, you know, the owner of all of these subsidiaries from all these different media companies. They made I think they're valued at something like $5.9 billion. They haven't stopped. If they were willing to do that once, would they do it again? And believe me, I'm not putting CNN off the hook either. Would they do the same thing? CNN? I think we've seen it. Would With all these other companies, they don't own everything of Fox. But if one massive media corporation is willing to do that, why wouldn't all the others? Let's just move on here. We got Rolling Stone. This is what Joe Rogan was talking about. So Rolling Stone posted this article where they were talking about hospital denies Oklahoma doctor's story of ivermectin overdoses causing ER delays for gunshot victims, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then I found an actual article that was debunking this. So Rolling Stone botched ivermectin stories raises questions about what is misinformation. If we go down here, let me read this part for you guys real quick. Rolling Stone has faced plenty of criticism over its article titled exactly the title that I just said to you guys a second ago, after a local hospital rejected the doctor's claims. So apparently they talked to some doctor. The hospital that they were talking about actually rejected these claims that they were having this massive influx of people taking ivermectin. Now, the article quoted Dr. Jason McGalley, who told Oklahoma City-based that the rise of people using ivermectin has overwhelmed the emergency rooms at rural hospitals, which are so backed up with gunshot victims that we're having a hard time getting to facilities where they can get the definitive care. However, Oklahoma's Northern East Health System then issued a statement. Let me make sure you guys can see that. My bad. Issued a statement rejecting the claims, saying that it had not treated any patients for any ivermectin related complications, including overdose, nor had it turned away anyone seeking medical attention. Following the hospital statement, let me make sure you guys can see that, my bad. Following the hospital statement, Rolling Stones affixed an update at the top of the story on Sunday, saying that it has been unable to independently verify any such cases. So they basically lied, and then they had to actually admit that they were lying. And of course they do it in the smallest way. They don't issue, basically they will make an article that's this big saying something, and then when they're wrong they will make like a quick line about something at the top of a page just saying, hey, we can't actually substantiate what we just said. So moving on quickly just to what CNN did, talking about mainstream media and the things that they do. How are they real when they do things like this? Everybody knows that this was done to Joe Rogan. Many independent fact checkers came forward and said CNN did nothing wrong. They did nothing to change the color of his face at all. But it's very clear that they did. You can see it right here. Let's play this clip.
Joe Rogan posted an Instagram video on January 8th that accused CNN of doctoring one of his videos from last year, in which he announced he had become infected with COVID-19. The American podcaster posted a side-by-side comparison to the original video, in which he claimed that he fought COVID by using ivermectin and monoclonal antibody treatment.
Now, this, what I'm showing you right here, is actually from his page. This is something that he actually showed. This is the reason why he was seriously considering suing CNN. Because he's like, look what they did. If you can't tell, the bottom one is the original, the top one is what CNN showed. They made him look very, very sickly for no apparent reason other than to, spin their stories. Now, let's get into another person in the mainstream media spectrum. And I know you would think this guy's not really mainstream media. Well, he is. He really is. Because when we talk about mainstream, we talk about people who are propagandists. And this guy's been one of the biggest propagandists that I've seen in a very long time. I mean, he's up there with anybody. Cooper, Maddow, anybody. Let's listen to what he has to say. And I hate when these guys who are comedians, although you can't consider Colbert a comedian anymore, go into this serious realm. This is how they get you. This is how they do it. They go from being the funny person that's always joking to all of a sudden.
Look, I know how numb we've become, but it's not normal. No other candidate for the presidency has ever had to pause his campaign to defend himself in multiple courts. And I would like to point out that in all 7 of his cases, no one doubts that he did these things. We're just sitting around patiently waiting to find out if the wheels of justice will grind fast enough for there to be any consequences. And the media is covering it like it's any other political story, like it's all horse race. But in this horse race...
Stephen Colbert, just getting so worked up over what's going on because it really affects his life. Multi-millionaire, truly affected by what's going on in the election. And then we have another clip of him, again, truly heartbroken by what's going on. Now, this is back when Donald Trump decided to question the election results. And it broke Stephen up. It broke him right up. Here, listen to this.
He would do this. What I didn't know is that it would hurt so much. I didn't expect this to break my heart. For him to cast a dark shadow on our most sacred right, from the briefing room in the White House, our house, not his, that is devastating.
Now the Emmy winner.
Absolutely ridiculous. Fighting back tears, of course, because it's so hard for him. But again, it goes back to Joe Rogan's question. How are these people real? How is any of this real? This is crazy. Like, we have Stephen Colbert. We should just watch JP Spears. At least JP is funny and brings you truth. Whereas now you watch Stephen Colbert and you're just like, it's just these talking points. Where are these talking points coming from? Watch until the end. When Tucker Carlson blows the whistle like you never heard him blow the whistle before, he'll let you know exactly where these talking points are coming from. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now we're going to move on to CNN and what CNN has to say about Tucker Carlson. Somebody who's actually doing the work, somebody who's making documentaries, making films, doing important interviews, not just focusing in on one thing, one part of the world, maybe not even just one political side of things. He's not even just doing that. And Tucker could do that and have a very successful career, but he goes over to Hungary and talks to the president there. He goes over to Poland and talks to somebody there. He goes over to Russia and talks to Putin. Wants to talk to the leader of China, wants to talk to the leader of North Korea, wants to go around the world, talks to the now president of Argentina, actually doing the work, actually doing what these journalists are supposed to be doing. And he's doing it on a massive scale. He is dwarfing CNN in terms of views. And this is what they have to say about him.
We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Tucker Carlson is lying from the streets of Russia, no less.
Not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview the president of the other country involved in this conflict, Vladimir Putin.
That's a lie. Serious news outlets, including CNN, have requested Putin to interview over and over again.
Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. They've never heard his voice.
Another lie. Serious news outlets, including CNN, have covered and, of course, reported on Putin's words since this war began, including one of his baseless justifications for the invasion of Ukraine, which he initially claimed was to stop the Nazis.
First, because it's our job. We're in journalism.
Tucker Carlson is not a journalist. Not even close.
Not even close. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Coming from somebody who is working at CNN, who instead of covering actual news stories, again, back to what Joe Rogan says, how is this real? One guy goes off and does the work. They decide, well, our news stories are just going to be about him, and we're going to call him a liar as much as we can. Why not just try to do an interview? Why not go over to Russia? You know why? Because they've made up so many things, CNN, that Russia has banned them. Not because they do such good journalists, because they've watched time and time again these people, like this woman, I think her name's Abby Phillip, Aaron Burnett, Anderson Cooper, watch them lie time and time again. So much so that they're like, those people are banned from our country. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But this, and that's the thing. Tucker does so much work, so much real journalistic work, and the thanks that he gets from the mainstream media, from a publication that he used to work for, by the way. He used to work for CNN, if you didn't know. actually decides to smear him in that way. And believe me, there are so many stories that I can pull up about them talking about Tucker. One guy was saying Tucker needs to go out more and visit more U.S. cities because Moscow isn't that nice. And it was just a whole thing on Tucker. Why aren't you guys going out and doing the real work? Why is everything behind a desk? You know why everything's behind a desk with these people? Because when you're doing actual journalistic work, and I'm going to show you more of this with James O'Keefe and Tucker Carlson, when you're doing this actual work, you actually have to go out. You have to go out and actually talk to people. You have to actually conduct interviews. You have to actually go out. But when you just have talking points, you can just sit at the desk all the time. That's why I'm getting tired of sitting at a desk. I want to go to the border and start making videos like that. I want to go into Kensington and see the actual epidemic of fentanyl. I want to start going around and talking to people from the left and the right and getting people's perspectives. Because I know you can't just do it here all the time. I love doing this, and I'm going to continue to do this and bring the truth the best way I can, but I know there's more out there. These people never get down to this, ever. You'll never see Abby Phillip out there in the field doing things like Tucker is. Instead, you'll see her doing something like this, reaching out to Neil deGrasse Tyson to talk to him about what Russia might be doing in terms of attacking satellites. What?
Might be confusing to people,
Yes.
which is, what's the point? What could Russia be trying to accomplish? And I mean, with all things, we were talking about the space race earlier, there's going to be a competitive nature of this. If you start to see Russia doing it, you're going to start to see China and the United States. What are the implications of that?
Hence the birth of our Space Force.
Yeah.
All right. They're tasked with protecting our assets in space and making sure that not only protecting the pre-existing assets, but making sure that our future access to space is not denied by an adversary. So this is like part of the prime directive in the service of American security. I can tell you that in terms of destroying another satellite, like I said, there are already ways to do that. There are these sort of what they call kinetic kills, where you can take a missile, no explosives necessary at all, because
Why are we listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson tell us about missiles? The astrophysicist, the guy who was just doing Cosmos. You see how crazy CNN is with what they do? They're like, we need someone who's an authority, and we need it to look like we actually do that work and interview people. But we need someone who's on our side, who also gets the talking points from the places that we get the talking points from. So just put in the word space, and that makes perfect sense to have Neil deGrasse Tyson sitting in front of me right now. This is what people mean when they say these people are propagandists. It's how they put their work together, how they put their interviews together. It's only people who are a part of their team, who are on their side. You notice that? It's very interesting. So let's move on to some real journalism, as if Tucker wasn't, because, you know, Tucker Carlson, he's not a journalist, not even close. But this person is. Kidding, of course. This person is, though, James O'Keefe. I want you to just see a little bit of what James O'Keefe is doing right now. Absolutely incredible stuff. Check this out. Real journalism. Check this out.
I don't know why they're asking me. Here, I'm a citizen.
Standing in front of the Ramada Inn Tucson Airport, a police officer told us to mind our own business.
What is this, a migrant place? What is it?
None of your business. Get going.
We see migrants, illegal immigrants standing near the rooms and told us not to go in.
What is this business over here?
It doesn't matter. You gotta go because the Pima County is coming with the sheriff.
What?
We're going in anyway.
They're supposed to have a sponsor. That means that they lied to be here in the first place, and that's what will get them in trouble.
We wanted to talk to someone about resources.
We put a hidden camera on a Mexican illegal immigrant whistleblower. Caesar also saw a sign for Las Palmas.
Quieren cobrar dinero por nosotros al gobierno.
Many subcontractors, many money grabs that get paid no matter what.
Listo para ser bebés americanos. Pero has notado que con mucha gente que se viene también son como pandilleros y...
Sí. Ahí me pusieron eso.
Oh, ok.
Acá solitas.
So, este ticket te lo dieron en Casalitas.
Sí, pregunta por el tatuaje, sí que tienen, pero...
Sí, pero todavía hay muchos que se pasan. Sí, hay varios.
You said the foundation, Catholic foundation right here?
Oh, Catholic Community Services?
They give to service to that, but the problem is they don't treat well to them.
Oh, they don't treat them well?
No. Sir, what is all this? Yes, you do have to tell me.
And finally, took off my homeless disguise.
He's got a thing and he's recording.
Yeah, it's called a microphone. What is your name and badge number?
James O'Keefe, sorry, a little clunky here, guys. Just had to move this around. James O'Keefe, man, he's dressing up as a drunk person, getting as close to as he can to these hidden migrant sites where they're bringing all of these people. They're clearing out schools and hotels and restaurants, and they're bringing these people in. And before they do, they kind of not quite barricade, but they secure the perimeter. They don't let any Americans near it whatsoever. If you're a citizen, you have to stay far away. They treat you exactly the way that you just saw James get treated. You get told it's none of your business. Get out of here. Meanwhile, the person, let's say it's you and you're going up and asking about it. You're the taxpayer paying for it, and you can't know anything about it. And it's not like it's something that's national security, or if the FBI is working on something, or the police force, like it's an investigation of some kind. It's just people who are from another country getting moved into spaces that used to be for you. And you can't know anything about it. But just talking about it, I want to really focus on what James is actually doing in terms of actual work. I just want to play another clip towards this because he broke a really big story. Putting cameras on people, getting all of this information. How is it that MSNBC, ABC, CNN, how is it that they never do this? Do you ever ask yourself that? Because it's great what James does. It's great he brought that type of thing to Project Veritas. It's great that he still does it. It's great that he's perfecting it. But why don't we ever see any other publication do this? Why doesn't anybody else do this? They have the resources. They're making so much more money than James O'Keefe makes, but they're never doing anything like this. And it goes back to Joe Rogan's questions. How are they real? How are they still around? It's because of who they get their talking points from and where they get their money. It's because they're a necessary evil. You know what I mean? They're a necessary evil. These companies, these agencies, these DNC, they need these people around, these talking heads, in order to sway public opinion. And that's why at the beginning of the conversation I brought up Project Mockingbird, and I don't think it ever went away. I'll be honest. Let's play another James O'Keefe clip quick.
On here. I can tell by your tone you're probably not a fan of the First Amendment. I think there's the feds are giving money to them, and it's public money, taxpayer money. We think it's a few $100 million. So we're doing an investigation, and we have a couple whistleblowers inside the facility, some sources that have come to us. And I will also get a copy of that body cam footage, so anything that you said to that gentleman, we're going to be publishing. All that conversation will be FOIAble. That's public information. You can file the public records request. So everything they're saying, you're going to hear, okay? That's the great thing about the First Amendment. And we're going to tell them that we have someone on the inside of that facility filming, and we're going to try to get their comment. Okay, so we just spoke to the sheriff's office.
The other deputies already kind of explained it.
Yeah.
So pretty much the people responsible for the property,
Yeah.
property owners, they're just asking that you guys stay off the property. We got called here for disturbance. It just sounded like their main gripe was that you guys were on the property.
Were you speaking to that security guard?
Yeah, we spoke to a security guard, but we also spoke to a
What did he
responsible
say to you?
just that you guys were on the property.
Did he say anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we had a whole conversation. I'm not, just for the sake of time, I won't run you guys through that whole thing.
Are you wearing a body camera?
Yes, I am. Yeah, actually, I'm recording right now.
That'll go on YouTube. We're going to see everything that he said with you. And
All right, gotcha,
do you know what this facility is?
So, I just want to catch you guys up on what I'm covering real quick first. So, as the sheriff's department, we got called here. We had contact with the owners, right? They're asking that you guys be trespassed from this property. So, all of that means is just that this property line, as long as you guys stay off of it.
Do you know what this place is, sir?
You guys want, I guess, tracking with what I'm saying? I just need to cover something.
I'm not going to go on that property.
Okay.
And there was literally a bus right behind the sheriff, and he's like, I don't know. There's a bus filled with illegal immigrants coming to a hotel.
Department, if you guys were to come back onto the property after we've instructed you guys that you guys are formally trespassed, it would be a criminal offense.
Are you just following orders? There was a bus filled with illegal immigrants driving right behind him.
And you would think You would think you see James O'Keefe do things like this. You see him constantly putting his neck out like this. You see Tucker Carlson going and interviewing Putin, which honestly, if he said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing or went a little too hard, he could have been stuck there. They could have just been like, here's these files. And then they could have been like, oh, these files have secret information. You're in jail now. You have to stay. They could have easily done that to Tucker. But he made the choice to still go out there and try this whole thing. But what do you think they say about James O'Keefe? Of course, it's CNN that I pull up here, of course. What do you think they have to say about James O'Keefe? You know? It's absolutely crazy. Let me fit that in the screen properly for you guys. What James O'Keefe doesn't get about the media. James O'Keefe just doesn't get it. James O'Keefe is still not a real journalist. These are the things that they have to say about James O'Keefe. It's absolutely incredible that they do stuff like this to these guys who are really, really trying to be actual journalists. This is what they do. Matt Taibbi famously said there's supposed to be a tension between the powers that be and the press. When the press walks up, it's supposed to be tension. You're getting grilled. You are going to know that the people have these questions. I'm going to ask you these questions, and you better answer properly because I'm going to let everybody know exactly what you have to say. But all of a sudden now, with these mainstream people, these corporate media people, as Joe Rogan stated, now they have these conversations behind closed doors. They get presented with talking points, and those talking points get pushed to the public. And because they're not real people, you know, I don't know about you. I've never seen Anderson Cooper in person. I'm not saying he's not real, but he's not real in the sense of he can't be touched. He can't be interacted with. You could actually interact with James O'Keefe. I've messaged James O'Keefe. I'm not famous or anything. I was like, hey, I had 1,000 subscribers. I was like, hey, James. And he's like, hey, what's up? Like, you can talk to these guys. They're real. That's how it's supposed to be. But these people that you see, these talking heads in the corporate media, you can't get to those people because you're not supposed to. They're supposed to tell you what's going on. But in reality, how the press is actually supposed to work is you're supposed to tell the press what's going on. And that's where they get their stories because they know that the people want to hear about these things. But they have it twisted. They have it completely twisted. Let's hear James O'Keefe just talk about media for a little bit.
A lot of the progressive muckrakers from the early 20th century, Upton Sinclair, Pam Zekman, a lot of the Mike Wallace, a lot of the investigative reporters, Gunter Wallraff, who actually did this. And if you think what we do at Project Veritas is hardcore or crosses an ethical line, then you need to study history because this is not like we're doing something new under the sun. You know, George Orwell wrote in 1984 that the party, the opposition, the establishment, the deep state, if you will, would demand that you don't believe the evidence of your eyes and ears. That was the most important commandment. Protagonist Winston Smith said in 1984, the party demanded that I don't trust my own instincts, my own sensory perceptions of the world around me. So Veritas is just simply using modern technology to disseminate truth to the people. And the propagandists do not want you to trust your own eyes and ears. There was a great anecdote after the Michael Wolff thing with the quotes in the White House, and the Washington Post reported, quote, there's no evidence to suggest that he did not say the things that he said. Yeah. I mean, that logic is so twisted, and it's not, Andrew, it's not necessarily something that the journalism community will say explicitly, we're propagandists, but it's a groupthink that has fostered inside the New York Times. So Veritas smashes the statist narratives with reality, with cinema verite. And
man, that was perfectly said. It's not outright said, but it's a groupthink. It really is. And that was back when James O'Keefe was part of Project Veritas that he was speaking. Now I'm going to show you a clip of Tucker Carlson from, I believe this is late 2023, where he's actually going to talk about, because, you know, unlike James, he actually was one of those people. He was in that community of people. And he's about to tell you exactly where these talking points come from and how deep it actually goes. So let's get into that.
You think I know some talented, I know a lot of not very talented.
Of course, I listened to it that fast, and I apologize, as always. Let's go.
People in television, but I know some talented people in TV who are still there. And a couple of them I've talked to, and like, it's pretty nice out here. You should come. Part of the way those TV companies work, they're all the same in this regard, is they tell the on-air talent, like, you're a loser, you're nothing without us. They really get inside your head. I'm sure the movie business is the same way. And this is to lower the cost of talent. And they just constantly tell you how bad you are. No one ever says a good word to you. And I mean, I never had that because I refused to talk to anybody in management for many, many years. I never talked to anybody. But most anchors do. And they just feel so bad about themselves and so insecure that, like, they're afraid to go anywhere. Like, I need this stupid company filled with layers of dumb people making bad programming decisions in order to do my work. I mean, they really think that. So it's sad. I'm thinking of one person in particular who's like a legit old friend of mine who works at a big TV channel, and he's famous, quite famous, but they mistreat the hell out of him. And I'm always saying to him, no one's creative in your world. Like, you don't work with any creative people. They're all bureaucrats and functionaries. You are creative. You should leave. If you take a pay cut the first couple of years, no big deal. You'll be happy because you can do your thing. You can make your art, without someone in your face all the time. But he's been so brainwashed that he won't go. It's sad. Ugh.
What's your take on a Wolf Blitzer type? Because whenever I take a close look at his history. Actually, I'm always like, why would he do this? Why would he say a bunch of stuff he doesn't believe or he must know is untrue? Like, what? He sat there as this sort of elder statesman of news and just sort of lied right through COVID and many other subjects. Why would he do that? Why would he do it to his legacy?
I worked with Wolf for years, never had a problem with him. It was always nice. No one wants to hear it. And I'm sure most people won't believe it, but I can tell you, having lived it for many years, it's true. The intel agencies have a big effect on what is broadcast on television and what you see on Facebook and Google as well. I mean, they're all up and down Facebook and Google, as I'm sure you know. And, there are a lot of anchors who, including people I know well and have worked with at different networks. I'm thinking of one in particular, a national security reporter, who was just a mouthpiece for the Pentagon and the CIA and is knowingly telling lies on their behalf. That's very, very common, very common. And I can think of a number of people at CNN who I know for a fact are doing that exact thing. And so, I mean, they're reading government propaganda from the intel agencies knowingly. And I'm sure they've got some internal rationale that allows them to get up in the morning and face themselves despite having done something that dishonest. But I'm just telling you, bottom line, I know that is true. I'm not speculating at all. And in particular on the national security stuff, there are very well-known national security reporters, and I'm thinking of one female national security reporter in particular, who just reads lies from the national security state. And it's wildly frustrating. And it would just make me mad. I mean, even if I don't agree with the lies, okay, but even if I did agree with the lies, I would be offended because they're lies. They're lies. Like when CIA and the Pentagon were claiming that Bashar al-Assad used poison gas against his own people. Okay, there was no evidence that was true. I mean, maybe it was true. There was no evidence it was true. None. Zero. And I called them out, and they could not provide any evidence. And yet every national security, and it was a big deal. I mean, we killed a lot of people in response. We sent in missiles and killed a lot of people. We took human life in response to that claim. And it was, as far as I can tell, a lie. And every national security reporter, every channel repeated it uncritically. The Biden administration blew up Nord Stream and, created the largest act of industrial sabotage in history, the largest man-made CO2 emission in history, an environmental crime. This is a huge deal. This happened. And every national security reporter just looked right into the camera and said, well, we think Russia did it. Well, they knew Russia didn't do it. That's a lie. And they knew it was a lie. So I just think, and again, I'm not speculating. I spent my life in this business, so I've seen it. People underestimate the degree to which the people sitting on the news, possibly even Wolf Blitzer, are repeating talking points from the intel agencies and doing it on purpose. It's scary, man. Really scary.
Well, what?
Oh, man. It's something that a lot of you could easily just be like, yeah, I knew that. But you didn't actually know. You had a hunch, just like I had a hunch. You watch certain things, you see something here, and then they tell you something completely different, and you're like, that can't be. You kind of pick up on it. You see them trying to play to the audience. You see them trying to hold back tears and different things, little different tactics like that. And you think, man, something's up with these guys. But when you hear it from someone like Tucker Carlson, then you start to realize, oh, this actually really does go deep. And I would say go look into that woman that he's talking about. Tucker Carlson has worked for PBS. He's worked for CNN and Fox. And he says there's one female national security reporter that he's thinking of. I think it was someone at CNN myself, but you look into it yourself and see if you can't pick out the person that he's talking about. I'm pretty sure it was the one at CNN, and I'm not going to name her, but you can find it. Very, very easy to find. This is a very super easy Google, but there you go. That's why. Why in the hell else would you pay Anderson Cooper millions of dollars? Why would you pay Don Lemon millions of dollars? Why would you pay any of those people 8 figures to do what they do? Why would you do that? Why would you spend the money to do that? Why would a company spend the money to do that? Because think about where the money's coming from, and then think about the purpose that they actually have. They're not bringing truth. They're bringing public opinion. They can smear and blur public opinion. That's what makes them worth $10 million, $20 million, however many $1 million. That's what does it. It's not the fact that they're bringing truth. And it's not the fact that they're this special journalist that hits the ground running and wakes up at 6 a.m. and goes all over the city talking to people in dark garages like you see in movies, guys in trench coats and all this stuff. They're people who sit down and get handed talking points, teleprompters there. Make sure you read it. At this point, you get sad. Remember this, okay? Do that. Make sure you read the teleprompter. That's why they get paid. Necessary evil. Very necessary evil. Now, that is not the end of the episode, but we're almost there. And then we got, as I talk about all this, we talk about corporate media, the mainstream, the talking heads. And then I've even said, well, you can just go to X. You go to X and you're going to find people, all sorts of perspectives. That's the place to go. No one gets silenced. They let it ride over at X. But do they? Do they? Elon Musk is all about truth. He's one of those guys, you'd think he was on the other team, but I'm telling you, man, he is a great... I've even been somebody to say that. I'm second guessing it right now. He hired that woman from the WEF, and I was like, oh, man, you got to remember, she did this and that, and maybe he just... Listen to this. Here.
On our buddy Matt Taibbi, he's beefing with Elon Musk. Sagar, you've been following this?
Yeah, I've been following it just because Elon really is one of the most unpredictable people who is out there. So Matt, as we'll all recall, is this incredible journalist. He does the Twitter files. He's the person who Elon goes to. He was accused of being an Elon toady, of being
doing PR for Elon.
Doing PR for the richest man in the world by reporting, legitimate story and working with sources. What Matt always told us, he's like, look, I didn't agree to any preconditions. He brought it to me.
The only precondition was that it had to be published.
It had to be published first on Twitter. Seems reasonable. That's you do this stuff all the time. People will always come to you with preconditions and all this stuff.
They would say, yeah. Actually, sometimes we're like, I've got a scoop, but will you do it in your newsletter? Will you do it at Intercept? Would it be counterpoints?
Right.
And like some people for different purposes want different platforms for a scoop.
Nothing wrong with that.
And if they want a thing and I don't feel like doing that, I'm like, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then that's fine. And they go shopping.
Right. We have power.
Somewhere else.
There's a power in this relationship. It's give and take, but you're certainly not doing PR. But then all of the people who accused him of doing PR conveniently are ignoring the fact that Taibbi has, by all accounts, really been punished by Elon, actually for speaking out on behalf of a platform that Taibbi is very loyal to, Substack. Let's put this up there on the screen. Matt has released a bunch of text messages that he had with Elon Musk from earlier last year in April of 2023. I'll read them verbatim. He says, Elon, am I being shadow banned? Elon replies, we went on lockdown after discovering Substack had stolen a massive amount of our data to pre-populate their Twitter ripoff. It looks like there's still a blanket search ban. It should be fixed tomorrow. Going forward, tweets with Substack will not appear in the For You page unless it is paid advertising, just like Facebook and Instagram. They will appear in following. This reply included from Matt. He says, Elon, I have repeatedly declined to criticize you. I have nothing to do with your beef with Substack. Is there a reason why I'm being put in the middle of things? This seems really crazy. Elon, you are dead to me. Please get off Twitter and stay on Substack. Matt, this is about the Substack thing? Seriously? That was it. That appears to be, you know, the texts that were released. And Matt, the reason that he replied this is because he had been tweeting previously, quote, Elon is uncomfortable around people who are not afraid of him and wants to prove he can hurt my business instead of just talking to me, even if it means suppressing access to news that he thinks is important. Somebody replied, are you actually suggesting that Elon is deliberately burying your visibility? Do you have any proof of this? To which he then posts literal proof showing that he actually was banned. And, you know, for anybody who also wants to accuse me or whatever of support, I mean, this is craziness because Substack is the venue, the platform through which so much independent journalism is flourishing, number one. Number two, we just read everybody a report, you know, from Public. I find it horrible that people like Schellenberger and Taibbi, who have thriving platforms over there, very often, Ryan, when they want to distribute their work, cannot tweet out links to Substack like they could to any other. Now, in terms of Substack stealing Twitter and all that, I don't know. Personally, it sounds like bullshit to me. If you ask me,
right?
You know,
that stuff is publicly available.
Yeah,
it's the API, and they just scraped it.
Right, and it's like in reality, like what were they really afraid of? That people were going to leave the platform. It's like, are they really going to leave the platform in critical numbers? Like, let's be honest here. You know, he's always tweeting about how X's traffic monthly users or whatever and all that went up. It was just a capricious move, clearly done from a position of weakness. And anyway, I thought it was funny because it just highlights to me that all of the people who really trashed him for doing journalism that was allegedly, you know, pro-Elon and, you know, writing PR for all of them are completely ignoring that his business has been very materially harmed. Arguably, he was better off under the old Twitter regime because at least then he was going viral. You know,
I honestly don't think it's funny. I mean, it's wild that he's like, you're dead to me, like as if it's some kind of relationship that they have. But the fact that he's going to take somebody who is a legit journalist, Matt Taibbi is a great journalist. Again, I always quote him about saying that there should be tension between the powers that be and the press, because the press is not supposed to be speaking for the powers that be. They're supposed to be speaking for the people. I said it before already. He's a legit journalist, a great journalist. And the fact that he could just be in some kind of spat. He's loyal to Substack, which is a great platform for journalists. Like if you want to go and read, like get in some really good reading, you know, like old school, like just the way that you would read a newspaper, but way better. You go to Substack. It's absolutely amazing. And some of the places, some of the people on there even have podcasts and videos and this and that. It's great. But for Elon to silence that guy, to shadow ban that guy, that's what everybody looked at when Elon took over X. Oh man, the shadow bans are going to be lifted. Fantastic. The shadow ban. Oh, he's going to let everybody back in. But it's just who he wants to let back in, which is the exact same system that we've all been under. Who else gets shadow banned other than the people who are deemed a dissenting voice, standing up for certain opinions, saying things that are unliked? Those are the people who get banned. That's exactly what's happening on X. The only difference is we know exactly who's doing it on X. Whereas in all these other platforms, you don't really know what's going on. And in a lot of the cases, you know, Meta in particular, Mark Zuckerberg will talk about how the algorithm just does it. And it's not something that's really talked about or thought about. The algorithm just does it to people. That's all. This we actually know. There's a guy looking at certain things going, that gets silenced, that doesn't. And this is not the only thing. I'm not bringing it up, but there was another league, there was another account that was, I guess, not to Elon's liking, and he had it banned. I've seen another person that I follow who got shadow banned because of Elon, because who knows? So I just say that to say, like, you know, you feel like you could go to X, you feel like that's the place to go, and then you see stuff like this happen, and it's just more of the same. More of the same. And believe me, I've been a proponent. If you've been watching this show for a while, I've been a proponent of Elon and X and what's going on there and how great it is. But I don't know now. I have no idea now. So very, very interesting development there. And then it becomes, what do you do? When you see Tucker Carlson and he has his website, now it makes sense. So as much as it's a pain to have to pay for somebody's work, that might be the only way to go. That might be the only way all of us can go. Because at any moment, you can have an Elon or an algorithm just shut you down. At least if you have your own website, you'd be okay in a sense. I don't know. I don't know. But to Joe Rogan's question again, when it comes to the corporate media, how are they still real? Well, you got the answer. It's because they get their talking points from higher up, and they spew those talking points to the people. So remember, next time you have a TV on and you're watching one of those people talk, where they're getting their talking points from and why they're saying the things that they're saying to you. And as soon as you hear them say something, go look it up and go find another perspective, because more than likely they're saying something that they're just being paid to say. You got to go find the truth. Get as informed as possible. Other than that, I'm out.